All right, guys, how's it going? Thanks for joining me again on another Tuesday night. So greatly appreciate that. Hopefully, everybody will come rolling in here in a second. So I know there's a slight delay on that. Everybody will start getting the notifications and all of that. So thanks again for joining. I think tonight's guest. I think this will be a lot of fun. So I mean, this has been one of my things that I've always appreciated doing is somehow being able to share with you guys something a little bit maybe more about a brand that not everybody may be familiar with. I'm hoping after tonight you'll find yourself much more familiar with what it is that Buzzard's Roost is doing. So it'll be a lot of fun, and I figured we'll go right to the source, the man behind the whole entire brand, who he'll be kind of going over really a lot of things. We're just going to kind of shoot the what tonight, have a little bit of fun, have him answer a few questions. If any of you guys along the way have anything for Jason, just put it in the comments, tag me or whomever, and we'll make sure and get that stuff answered for you tonight. So let me first go back and say hi to a few people that were in here right away. Sean was in here right away. Whiskey Wars, how's it going? Sugar Kitty, good to see you. Roy, always good to see you, brother. Appreciate it. Mike Franklin, Mike, good to see you. Christopher, good to see you, brother. Deborah C. Brett Marquardt, Brett, good to always see you. Matt Drennan, good to see you, Matt. Adriana, Whiskey Mountains, good to always see you. TK, Trevor Kunkel, good to see you, brother. My brother to the north. Alex B, how's it going, man? Who else we got here? Tim Swoop, TX70, how's it going? Doug H, good to see you, Doug. Always good to see Doug. Mike Widener, good to see you, Mike. Cam Lochner, good to see you, Cam, brother. Good to always see you. So here's what we'll do tonight. So I'll bring on Jason here in a second. We're going to get to know him a little bit more. We'll kind of start from the beginning with him, let him kind of share a little bit about himself. And again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to fire away. We want to have fun tonight. That's the whole purpose of this, and help introduce the brand a little bit more, and we can kind of find out more about the whiskey and him and everybody. So, all right, let me bring him on here, and we'll get going here and have some fun tonight. So there he is, the man of the hour. Jason, thank you, sir. Appreciate you joining tonight.
Hey, how's it going?
Not bad. So yeah, thanks again. Like we were talking a little bit before, I was newly introduced to this not that long ago. I had a sample, I think, of just the regular small batch going back maybe a month and a half ago, and really enjoyed it. Then when we were in Bardstown not long ago, I saw a bottle on the shelf at Bardstown Bourbon Company. I figured, you know what? I like the small batch. Let's give the Barrel Strength a try. It was a nice proof, and needless to say, I was pleasantly surprised by the profile of it. And it got the wheels a spinning up there, and I knew, man, I got to talk to this guy and find out a little bit more about what's behind the brand. So I'm looking forward to finding out and sharing a little bit of your story with everybody. So.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Greatly appreciate you taking a little bit of your time. So let's do this. If you don't mind, I guess, just to give everybody a little idea of kind of your background, why don't you kind of just share a little bit of where it kind of all started and how it started for you.
Okay, well, I guess we'll start at the beginning.
That's a loaded question. That's a loaded question.
I mean, it depends how many hours you have. Born and raised here in Louisville, Kentucky. We'll skip through all that pretty quick, but actually grew up just down the street from National Distillery, which was on Payne Street and Lexington Road. That distillery closed in 1977. My great aunt and uncle actually worked there. And so I was exposed to bourbon pretty early. It was always around my family, my great aunts and uncles. It'd always be at different parties or card games or weekends or whatever. Learned to make my first highball when I was a kid. People didn't want to get up from the card table, so they said, go make me a highball. And I was like, what's that? And usually it was about 3 fingers of Old Crow with some Canada Dry ginger ale on top. packed full of ice. So, fast forward, I started a restaurant when I was 21. Got into the restaurant business pretty early. I loved to cook. And after I was at my first restaurant for 11 years, sitting around with a buddy of mine, drinking a bourbon, and we're going to start another restaurant and was going to sell mine to start this other one, and moved a little bit more towards fine dining. And we actually called it Bourbon's Bistro, just because we were sitting there drinking bourbon. So, the more research I did about it, the more I really got into it, the more I really knew that I didn't know anything about it. So, over the years, getting deeper and deeper into it, meeting everybody in the business, meeting all the master distillers, you name it, the writers, they've all been through here. So that really is what got me started on kind of my bourbon journey. And finally, you should get to that nth step. I mean, the restaurant industry, I've been in it for a long time, can kind of be a younger man's game.
Yeah.
So looked, actually, it's like we've done barrel picks, and we were kind of the pioneers in flights and stuff. We opened Bourbon's Bistro in 2005. So we've been here 17 years, and I always tell people we were almost, doing bourbon before it was cool. Even though to me it's always been cool, you just nobody knew about it. So we loved educating people about it, loved telling people about it, and just sharing our knowledge of what we knew. Like I said, we did flights, and we also were one of the first people to do single barrels here in a lot of these distilleries, which is, single barrel programs are huge now. So we've done probably over 100 single barrels just through the restaurant here over the years, and just developed a palate, became kind of known in the industry, and was approached by a couple of people, and we decided to do our own brand. And that's where all this got started. So that's the short and long of it. Did I lose you?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm having some problems on mine. I'm trying to fix it. So I don't know. Can you see me?
I cannot. Do you have the old school color bars?
Yeah, I don't know what in the world. I can see you, but I'm gonna have to try to fix it. I'll monkey around with it a little bit. But anyway, sorry about that. So yeah, I guess let me ask you this. I guess going back to the Bourbon's Bistro, what was it about that kind of made you want to start that? Was it just your passion for bourbon at the time with that whole side of it?
It was actually my love of the food industry is really what got me here. And, we were sitting around. It's like, what are we going to call this next restaurant? I wanted it to be a little more upscale. I got tired. My first one was a pizza joint, got tired of kind of doing that, and wanted to try my hand at a little more upscale. So, after a bunch of research and a bunch of debate, it was going to be called Bourbon Steakhouse, but then, a steakhouse kind of backs you into a corner.
Yeah.
So, the more research I did with the interchange between bourbon and New Orleans and the South and all the way down the Ohio River, I decided to call it, an upscale Southern restaurant. I wanted it to have kind of a Southern flair, to be, to go actually to New Orleans in that area, from here to New Orleans, and just cook in the South, but not take on, New Orleans has a lot of island influences in their food, but not go, south of New Orleans. I wanted to go south of here, and I always call us Louisville or whatever the north of the South. So it's just basically good old Southern cooking, and we decided to use a backdrop as bourbon. and started cooking with bourbon. And I think, we wanted a great restaurant and a great bourbon bar, which really, after doing all my research, wasn't out there. And, I was a big proponent of when I started learning about bourbon, that when you figure that 95% of the world's bourbon comes from about 70 miles from where I'm sitting, that was intriguing to me. And it was almost like a challenge, because if you think 17 years ago, I would ask what everybody was doing 17 years ago in their bourbon journey. What were you doing 17 years ago? Well, I was starting a bourbon bar. and so, because I'm born and raised in Kentucky, love my state. The tobacco industry, obviously, was leading down a bad trail. The horse industry was getting a little rocky and still can be at times. So, when you figure 95% of the world's bourbons comes from here, and that, to me, it was undermarketed. I'm like, this is a great product, and it's undermarketed. So at that stage, we were just out to educate people about it, and tell the world, yell it from the mountaintops that, or the hollers, or wherever you want to talk, that we're not just country folk, cooking shine down by a creek, under the moonlight. We actually sophisticated, beautiful drink that has all types of flavor profiles in it, and a lot of people are just uneducated about it.
Oh, there we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. Sorry about that. I think I think we'll have to, I think we're going to have to roll with just you tonight. I can't figure out what in the world is going on with my camera unless I leave the studio and come back on. I guess I could try that and see if it resets it, but I don't think
we can check out and check back in maybe.
Let me do this. I apologize. And I've literally never had, I've never seen so many rainbow colors in my entire life. So this is a little bit odd. So, all right, bear with me here 1 second. And let me come right back on here.
Could grab my guitar and strum a few notes.
Yep, we're stuck with the bars. I don't know what in the world is going on with my camera. I've never had this happen before. But like I was saying before, I guess the one thing I was before, I don't think you could even hear me, but the interesting part was when you started this thing 20 years ago, you were hitting a time that wasn't the most popular or bourbon driven time. I mean, 20 years ago, you were kind of, I think, right after, a little bit after the time with, the struggles of bourbon right before the boom and everything. So it was it had to have been a passion and a love driven thing for you to start a business at that time. So
yeah, I think it was, and a lot of people told me I was crazy. Some of our first T-shirts, I always say, the back, it's Bourbon's Bistro on the front. The back says, "Bringing bourbon back one sip at a time." So that was kind of my, there were tons of martini bars and cocktail bars and what have you, but we were doing bourbon and we were going to do it till the end. We were either going to make it or we weren't. And I guess if the bourbon part didn't make it, hopefully the food would have.
Well, I think that was kind of a cool thing. I like the fact that you clearly took a major leap into that industry. Just starting a restaurant period is difficult as it is, and to try to surround it and make it focused on not only the food but incorporating the bourbon and all of that, that's pretty interesting. So all right, let's kind of shift to, I guess, as far as the whiskey and stuff goes. Let's start with the Buzzard Roost first. I guess I have to ask you, where did the name kind of come about? Where did you come up with the name, and what's the meaning behind that?
Well, there's a little bit to that. We actually tried to get a distillery started. We worked probably 2 or 3 years on getting a distillery started. We picked out a farm, did a lot of numbers work. We approached a lot of people that could actually fund something like that. And after a while, I just realized that somebody wasn't just going to hand me $30 million, because I had a good team and a good plan and a good palate. They're like, okay, and a lot of those investors say, well, you don't have a track record. You need your own brand. And I'm kind of stubborn about my whiskey, so I really wanted to do it the other way. I wish I could have, but so given the circumstances, we actually got to I call it the 10-yard line. We had an investor lined up. We were going to buy a farm out in Waddy, Kentucky, and it was 184 acres, beautiful. Had a 200-year-old kind of mansion on it. Had 2 natural springs on the property, had enough room for 13 warehouses. So we had the architects and we had the land surveyed and all that. We actually lost a lot of money on the deal, but the road bordering that farm was called Buzzard's Roost Road. And so I said, it's got to be, at least our label, not necessarily the distillery, but one of our labels needs to be called Buzzard Roost. And we lost the farm, but the name stuck. And, my partners didn't want Buzzard's Roost at first because they thought, this kind of ugly bird sitting on the side of the road, but Rick did our labels beautiful and hit the nail right on the head. And I love our label and I love our name. And I also wanted something to sound old. I didn't really want to revive an old label. I wanted to be my own label. I wanted it to sound like it's been around for 100 years. Plus, it's kind of a yin and yang with our new innovation, which is kind of the stuff we're doing is a little bit new to the whiskey industry. So it's kind of that yin and yang. It's kind of the old and new. And I just wanted an old sounding name that it sounded like it'd been around for a while.
Well, and it's kind of a cool. I thought it was honestly, I thought it was one of the more attractive things, only from the standpoint of, the fact that it's kind of catchy, so you start to kind of, you start to kind of wonder and think about what that is and what the meaning behind it. So, I think outside of just a regular name, something that's a little bit off the beaten path, I think it was kind of a cool thing that it's a little bit more catchy and maybe wants to drive you a little bit more towards the brand to find out, man, what exactly is it that's behind all of this. So I really kind of thought it was a cool thing. That was one of my my favorite. I mean, before I tried the whiskey, I was like, man, this is a pretty darn cool name. So,
well, in my brain, I've got this Buzzard with the moonlight sitting in a branch, overlooking these warehouses, kind of keeping an eye, keeping a watch, maybe 2 or 3 of them. And then we started to, tap into this, let's roost a while. And, with the times of today being busy and everybody's busy and I'm busy, but at the end of the day, you just want to grab a bottle and sit with some friends and sip a little bit and roost a while. You just want to kind of hang out. And so it was sip, sit, and roost, and just kind of slow down and
yeah.
It all kind of plays into just kind of hanging out and more discussion about what's going on these days. I think storytelling, it's all about podcasts now, which I'm grateful for, and they're great, especially traveling in a car or whatever. It's lovely to hear somebody tell a story, but that person to person, sitting and sharing whiskey with somebody, there's nothing like it.
Well, and I think that's like really good. I mean, I think when you start to think about like what whiskey does or what it lends itself to do, like that, that roosting, just knowing what that is, it is. I think it's kind of a nice signal for, hey, slow down, take your time, get a good whiskey, sit there, kind of chew the fat a little bit with, some of your buddies or whatever it may be, and just kind of, reflect or have a good time. So that's kind of cool. I appreciate the story behind, something like that more than just kind of a made up name or, I know it's not necessarily made up, but I mean, it's interesting from the standpoint of just kind of how it all came about. And really it's more than just a name. I mean, you can see, I mean, you kind of talked 5 or 10 minutes about just that name and ultimately what it meant. And that's kind of the cool part of it. I think it's also indicative of, like I said before, what whiskey does. It wants to slow you down, take your time, have a good time with all of that. So, all right, let's do this. The whiskeys and stuff. So one thing I was kind of curious about was what a lot of people kind of getting into a brand or launching a brand, what they'll do is they'll have, a single bourbon or maybe a bourbon and a rye or something. But you've kind of come out really, really swinging with a pretty good, skew of different bourbons. What was the thought behind, I guess, kind of hitting people with several different choices versus just one or two?
Well, at first we started truly small. With our small batch and single barrel, and that was rye. So, and that's crazy because I've been a bourbon person forever. And I started working with some people down at Independent Stave Company. And they started doing, and our whole gig is, right now we're a secondary aging company. You're going to find a ton of companies out there sourcing whiskey. How do we make ours different? So I started doing some more research and got in pretty good with some people at Independent Stave Company. They actually have a wood research department. So I started talking with a friend down there. He became my friend, but I've learned, more about wood over the past 3 years than anybody needs to know, and it's all about our barrel development. So, we use a real heavy toast and a number 1 char exclusively on our secondary aging. And it makes all the difference in the world. So after doing all this research, ryes were a little bit cheaper to get into than bourbon. I also didn't want to hit the market. My first whiskey I didn't want to hit the market with a $150 bottle of whiskey. I just didn't want to do that. So we kind of struggled with these ryes at first. I was like, because I technically from the beginning, I hated ryes. I didn't care for ryes because I'm a sipper. Like I love to sit around and sip whiskeys. I don't drink cocktails very often. maybe once in a while. But I think ryes are great for cocktails. They're not good for sitting around sipping. It makes me uncomfortable. It's just, they're not meant for sipping to me. So I kind of laid out this gauntlet. I said, if you can make me like ryes, if these barrels that you're telling me can do what they want to do, make me a bourbon drinker's rye. Give me a barrel that'll make a bourbon drinker's rye. And so that's what we did. And so we came out with a small batch and our single barrel at first. We came out in 2019 of July. We sent our first single barrel to the San Francisco World Spirits Competition and won a gold medal. And it's a 95% rye, 5% barley. So what we did, or I thought is we took 3 non-selling points and turned them into selling points for me. For a non-selling point, it's 95% rye. It is 105 proof, and it's only 3 years old. So then you flip that and say, yes, it is 95% rye. It is 105 proof, and it's only 3 years old, and it doesn't drink like any of those. And we tell people where we get our whiskey. We get it from MGP, and we're not turning bad whiskey into good whiskey. Or, I think we're taking good whiskey and making it a whole lot better.
Yeah, I would agree.
It's just through our aging process. Because, the big boys always do number 3 and 4 char. That's what they've always known for 200 years. To do something like we're doing, which is a heavy toast and a number 1 char, it's kind of unheard of. And so they can't just switch their whole profile. But what we have, and this is through chemical extraction, and this is tests and all kinds of experiments that we know what we're getting out of the wood. We can pull the good stuff out and leave the bad stuff behind. The eugenols, the furfurols, the glycols. I mean, the lignin, which turns into vanillin at certain temperatures. It's unbelievable. And I just don't think that technology has been available until now. And
what let me ask you this. What was it about? Because as you know, I know a lot of people understand and know the influence of a barrel, but it really sounds like, you guys have taken it a step or two further and really dove into what the true effect of what that barrel, has. So what was it about that made you kind of think like, boy, I think we really want to focus or need to focus more on the importance of the barrel, with the whiskey that we're putting in there?
Well, if you think about, I think we kind of got late to the stage of our own brand coming out. Maybe I should have had to jump on it a little bit earlier. But if you talk to any master distiller, from all the ones I've talked to, about 70% of the flavor, 70 to 80, depends who you talk to, 70% of the flavor comes from the barrel. So everybody's using sourced whiskey, whether it's from, I don't care where you're getting it. There's a bunch of sourced whiskey out there, and all these labels don't have their own distillery, and they're using sourced whiskey, and they're using some blending techniques. But if 70% of the barrel comes, or the flavor comes from the barrel, let's start there, differentiate ourselves through the research that Independent Stave Company is doing, and then work backwards, because that's where the flavor's coming from. So everybody's got the same mash bills, But what really hugely makes a difference, and that's why we've got a few SKUs out, is because I love to do linear tasting, because it's the same juice. It's a 95.5, 3 years old, usually 105 proof, but you can taste what barrels we put them in. That's what makes the difference.
Yeah. And you can truly tell there's a different profile. Cause like I said, before we were going live, there's just something a little bit different. And I think what it is that you've done with those barrels, is clearly having an impact or an influence on these whiskeys, and to me in a very good way, because the one I've got here, I mean, which is the Barrel Strength. This is 114, 14.4, 114.4. The amount of like heavy like chocolates and coffee and brown sugars and the kind of creme brulee. It's not something I think I've gotten on an MGP that is in that 4, 5, 6 year range. To be honest, there's much more like complexity, and that was the one thing I really kind of appreciated, was the depth of that whiskey. And that's why I was kind of really curious about what that barrel was, that influence that you guys were really doing with it. It's clearly shining through.
Well, thank you. I mean, there's definitely a lot of work going into it, and we just brought the bourbon out. I guess it was this year. Well, late last year, put it that way, because it is 2022. We haven't sent the bourbon to San Francisco yet, but we will. We've sent 3 of our ryes out there. We've gotten 2 gold medals and a double gold. So we got a gold for our single barrel, a gold for our barrel strength, and then we do a toasted rye barrel that is got a double gold. So we're pretty excited about that. We think we're on the right track. And still, all this is kind of an experiment. Like I said, we're very transparent about what we do. We do a real heavy toast. We're bringing all those, we're bringing all those sugars to the surface, and we use a number 1 char. So and this is exaggerated, if you think a number 4 char is that thick, a number 1 char is this thick. So it's easier, and that's an exaggeration, but it's easier for the liquid to get through to these toasted layers that we've developed behind the char. And it's the reason we can know what we're getting from the wood is through chemical analysis. He actually does all these experiments, analyzes the wood, and seeing what compounds it show, and it's basically time and temperature. So at certain temperatures, lignin is in oak, white oak. At certain temperatures, lignin turns into vanillin. Vanillin is a huge component in vanilla. So at certain times and certain temperatures, the vanillin will shoot through the roof. So I've got a vanilla barrel, I've got a smoke barrel, I've got a balancing barrel. I've got 12 different proprietary barrels that each impart different flavors on whiskey. And it's not like I'm using a rum barrel, and it's not like I'm using a port barrel. These are brand new 53-gallon white oak barrels. I mean, it's expensive to do it the way we're doing it, but it makes a huge difference.
So okay, so when you start out, so you're first, you're toasting the barrel, and then you're hitting it with just a kind of a quick kind of flash char, then almost to get it a little bit of that char layer. I know you said char level 1. That's kind of an interesting approach, because like you said before, I think so many people think of like the heavier the char, the more influence that you're going to have, like the whiskey in and out of there. But I can see you. I know you're shaking your head and you're like, no. So it's kind of a cool thing, because that was one of the things. I'm glad you said that, because before we went live, I was looking on here just to see if there was something that referenced a toasted aspect, because you do get a little bit of that, you almost want to say like a marshmallow, or there's something that's there about that influence that's much different than what you get on a lot of other whiskeys. So that was really kind of cool to hear you talk a little bit about how the structure of the barrel was set up, and then the char, and why maybe you're getting these flavors in that bourbon.
Yeah, I always tell the story about a tree with a branch cut off. If you've ever seen a tree that has a branch cut off, and all the sugars go to the surface to heal that wound. So you can look at a tree and say, oh, there was a branch there because it's got a big knot.
Mm-hmm.
All the sap goes there to heal the wound. It's the same happens when you char and toast a barrel. All the sugars rush to the surface to heal the wound. So we take that to an extreme, and we know, like I said, once again, through chemical extraction, we can analyze that to say what sugars have we brought to the surface and what comes to the surface at what temperature and what time. I mean, some of our barrels are toasted for over an hour.
Really?
So it's like I said, it's industry kind of pioneering stuff just because we have the technology to do it. And I'm just fortunate enough to be in that lucky time to where Independent Stave, they have a wood research lab. That's all those guys do at the lab is do experiments every day on wood. Independent Stave is one of the biggest companies, wood barrel companies in the world. So surely they're going to try to exploit what they're doing. Not necessarily exploit is a bad word, but they're getting into their craft. And,
right.
It's been eye-opening for me because I've been a traditional guy for a long time. I've got a huge whiskey collection of old school stuff, like everything from Prohibition to on. And I like everything made before 1980, preferably the 40s and 50s. They used to make it differently back then. So this is the flavors that I want to get to, these deep, full, complex flavors. And I know you can get there. And there's different ways to do it. Back then it was distilling. Now I'm kind of stuck. Once I get a distillery, it could be a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
And I guess one thing I need to mention about our barrels, they probably would not be good for 10 years. They wouldn't be a good 10-year barrel. They'd probably be a good 6 to 8 year. But you get a regular barrel, a 4 char, it could go 20 years, whatever you want to call it. 10 to 12 to 20. It's good for all that. But we bring all of our stuff to the surface. And with that little char level, you're going to get into the wood tannins a lot earlier than you would with say a regular char 4. Because we're trying to bring all that stuff to the surface.
Yeah, it's a very interesting approach. I mean, it's slightly like backwards from like what you hear, others want, because a lot of people, we all hear, char 3, char 4, all of that, where I think a lot of people are assuming that that's where a lot of the flavor is driven, and maybe not so much that it's all the flavor, just a component of what that is. But, like as you kind of talk, I'm thinking, the toast for like an hour, when you're doing that process and toasting that barrel for, upwards of an hour, what that's doing. So then you hit it with that char 1. And then as those barrels, sit there for however long it is, the influence of that, I guess, kind of charred barrel really has a major influence as it works into the barrel and out and back and forth. And I think you just don't think of it like that. We all just think that those heavy chars are where all of that flavor is coming. And really, this is proof that that's not the case.
Yeah, I think so. And, I don't like to compare our stuff with barbecue just because I don't, but being from the cooking side, I mean, low and slow, you're just developing flavors. You're developing these flavors, and that's basically what we're doing. That's what you try to do when you're cooking is develop flavors. And that's what we're doing. And you would be surprised at the research they've done on char 1 and char 4. If something sits in, you put some new make or white dog in a char 1 and char 4, let it sit 6 months, and the char 1 will actually be a little bit darker.
Interesting.
You wouldn't think that. You wouldn't think that at all. But like I said, I've just been fortunate enough to be in this right time and hit it to where, and we're small enough that we can we can move either way. I can afford, I mean, not a lot, but
Yeah.
knock on wood, we haven't come across many mistakes yet. So we're relying on the research, and it's we're in a fortunate position because we can grow our brand with this technology, and hopefully one day we'll be having our own distillery and all our own new make and all that. So,
and you said before, like this is kind of proprietary for you, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, just the way we treat our barrels.
Yeah.
We have 12 barrels that nobody else can use down in Independent Stave Company. And basically they developed the Makers 46 program. And I know a lot of people out there are familiar with the 46 program.
Mm-hmm.
The 46 program uses staves. We use whole barrels like that. So like I said, it's expensive, but it makes a difference. And it's Independent Stave Company that is doing the research on it. Like I couldn't afford to pay for that research. I'm just hopefully benefiting from it. And it's got me, obviously I'll sell the snake oil because I believe in it. I believe in the data and the research that I've learned over the past 3 years.
Are you thinking that like with that kind of barrel construction and that whole process that it's really kind of influencing I don't even want to say like younger whiskey. I mean, I don't really think of like, 5-6 year, bourbons as young. I don't. I mean, are you thinking like that barrel influence and impact is like, I mean, I'm trying to figure out how to like word this like the right way. Is that, do you feel that the barrels that you have influence that 5-6 year bourbon maybe more than you would like a heavier char, or is it just kind of your thought process on that part of it?
No, I think definitely. Like I said, once we get some new make that's going in the barrels, which should be this year,
mm-hmm.
That we're going to see the results, and we're going to see it a little bit quicker.
Okay.
And and there's really, everybody's tried to cheat time, and
mm-hmm.
I understand that, but with smaller barrels and you do this and you do that. I mean, you really can't cheat Mother Nature. But this is, it's not cheating. It's just the research has pointed to that there may be another way, within the bounds of tradition. We're charring a barrel. We're just not charring it as much as these guys.
Yeah.
We're toasting a barrel. Some don't really toast it, but you're going to get a toast when you char it because some of those sugars are obviously coming to the surface, but you're burning up a lot of the sugars that you built through a number 4 char, because a 4 char goes deep. And
right.
the sugars are always behind the char. It's like a piece of toast or a marshmallow. You don't, once you've done toast, once you burn it, it's no good.
Yeah. It's really, I mean, it's really a fantastic profile. I mean, it's something definitely different and unique. And I know when I first tried it, I was you get so used to trying to figure out what that kind of conventional, bourbon profile is, and knowing kind of where it comes from, you get a little bit familiar with it. And then I tried it, and I was thinking to myself, like, well, holy shit. I'm like, this is just a way different profile than what I'm ever used to on that particular kind of bourbon. And my thought was like right away that because you got those heavy, fruits and chocolate and brown sugars and a little bit more of for me, like a little bit of like a marshmallow. And maybe now that, through talking to you, you can see where you're getting that influences a lot from that toasted barrel aspect.
Right.
Yeah.
And even back in the day when I would do barrel picks, that, just it comes to mind Four Roses, because they seem to always roll about 10 barrels out, and they would have their different yeast strains, which really made the difference, and their grain bill a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But there's at times when I would taste the same same recipe, barrels that sat right next to each other in the warehouse, and they would just be so different. And, wherever the barrels came from, their charring process, hey, maybe it stayed on the flame a little too long. Maybe it didn't. But that, in my mind, from my experience back then, says that there is a lot more going on than people really realize with the barrel. And then with my, research with Independent Stave Company, it's flat out true, because I can tell if something's been in our barrels or if it hasn't. I can just tell it.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. So, like, with that being said, what is that? Like, what is it that you look for, and what is that kind of that profile that you're trying to have influenced on this whiskey?
So I mentioned earlier that I love old school whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like if you say I've got all these beam decanters, and if you look at a Fitzgerald from the 40s or something, it's apples and oranges to the Fitzgeralds today.
Right.
Not to say that the Fitzgeralds today are bad, but back then are just unbelievably good. They used to bring it off the still at lower proof, put it in the barrel at lower proof. So you're getting a lot of more flavors from the grains. I want that old school whiskey flavor. I want the full dog and pony show. You'll taste some that'll finish up front, or you're like, oh, it had good mid palate feel, or that one went straight to the back and kind of dried out. I want front, middle, back, the whole deal with the hug at the end, Yeah. And hopefully my whiskeys do that. But that's what I'm looking for, this viscous mouthfeel.
Yeah.
We want something that's going to be a little bit more oily, not a good word. I like viscous better. It's going to coat your mouth.
Yeah.
You're going to get some flavor up front, in the middle, and in the back. And I'm trying to balance that out with some of these barrels we're doing and the whiskey that we bring in.
And I think it's very much that. I think that's that clearly. With it obviously non-chill filtered and all of that. I'm a big fan of that, in not stripping things from the whiskey, allowing those other particulates or whatever to remain that need or should be there. And I think just listening to you, I love the approach of what it is you're doing, and the spin and the technology and science behind it. Because I know you taste a lot of whiskeys. I taste, probably not nearly what you do, but I'll tell you what, it's a really fantastic bourbon. And as my bottle has really opened up a lot of what you just described. I know, you don't want to use oily, but I like the term only because, it coats your mouth really well, but the viscosity is there, but not overly hot. It's not blowing you away. I think it allows for you to really be able to sit down and sip on something that's just shy of 115 proof and truly enjoy it for what it is.
Yeah, exactly. And you can definitely put some water on it and let it open up and quick. And just to make a reference to the wine industry, I've drank a lot of wine in my days, and I'll see people decant wine to where they want that flavor. But what I'm looking for is, if I'm going to have a great bottle of, say, red wine dinner, I'm not going to decant it. I'm going to have a glass, and then the next glass I'm going to have is going to change from the glass I've had now. And if I have another glass, it's going to change. So it is a journey. And it's like, I love to let my whiskey open up. Usually this is about a 20 or 30-minute drink, right? So at least for me, and usually I'll kind of agitate it a little bit, and I want that air to get to it. So I like the natural progression that air gives to the whiskey as it opens up. That's why I don't instantly open it up with water. I think every time you take a drink, it's going to be different, which is great for me. Well,
somebody's asking if you can kind of give like a little a brief description. I mean, hey, I'm sipping on it right here. I mean, and here are my thoughts. I mean, I think it's a really nice, rich, complex bourbon. And again, I think that toasted influence is definitely there. You know, for me, there's some nice, you know, kind of chocolates like espresso, the heavy dark kind of brown sugars, maybe even a little bit of, I don't want to go as far as like a molasses or anything like that. I don't think it's necessarily that, but those rich characteristics are definitely an influence, you know, in this. But I think the more I think about it, that toasted influence has a big influence on it, in my opinion. So
sure, and you know, we always say there's really no wrong answers in
right.
what you're doing. Everybody's palate's different, and that's another reason why we have several different SKUs. Some people like the small batch, some people like the barrel strength. We've got the French toasted oak that we just put out, which is phenomenal. So we're still experimenting with all kinds of stuff, and you know, we're looking to hit the palate of everybody, and just like it's a cool, fun process, and we're glad that people are receptive to it. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be really interested to kind of, you know, keep an eye on things. What I wanted to do is just share the screen here real quick. I wanted to show everybody a little bit, kind of just, you know, if anybody hadn't been to the website, here are kind of some of the, like Jason was saying, some of the SKUs, and there are a few of them, and obviously you guys can go and check this out. But I just wanted to show you real quick, like what kind of, you know, some of the offerings and stuff are. So, you know, you've got the single barrel, and selfishly asking, do you guys have or will have a single barrel program at all?
We do have a single barrel program, as a matter of fact. So we're in we're technically in about 5 states right now. We're still shipping product to 5 states. But at the end of the year, we're looking to be in about 10 to 15 states. It depends how everything goes.
Okay.
So we're growing, you know, pretty well.
Well, that's good. Well, that's what you, I mean, obviously as a business owner, that's what you want. So, let me ask about this elephant in the room right here. As you can see, the old peated barrel rye. What's the influence behind? I mean, now I'll say this flat out. Like, I've made no bones about it. Like, I'm not a peat guy. Like, I'm not a Scotch guy. So for me, when I see that, I steer clear of it. Now, there's another guy who was in here before, Matt from ADHD Whiskey, who said to me that he said, this is really very good. And I know he's not a peat guy as well. So I'm curious to kind of hear what the reasoning behind wanting to take like that profile that you enjoy and hit it with something that's kind of a peated influence.
Well, that's a great question. And this is the elephant in the room. I'm not a rye guy. We established that from the beginning. I think all of my ryes are bourbon drinkers' ryes. So we build them as bourbon drinkers' ryes. We toast them and we char them. They become out to be a bourbon drinkers' rye. We did the same thing with that. And I'm really, really not a Scotch guy. Like, I like Scotches less than I like ryes.
Okay.
So once again, down at Independent Stave, they're like, you got to try this. And I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. So what we did is we did our normal toast, we did our normal char, and then we smoked the barrel with some Highland peat imported from Scotland. And I absolutely love this. Absolutely love this product. It's a great product. What we've decided to do, because I've done tastings out in the field, and just like you said, everyone wants to steer clear because it says peated on the label.
Yeah.
So it's going to be the same product. I can say that. We're very transparent about what we do, but we are changing the name. So the peated will go away. But our new barrels of peated are actually just going to be called smoked rye.
Okay.
And so hopefully that you will approach a smoked before you would approach a peated.
Okay. I can see
And
that.
then when you get, because it's so subtle, there's just a little hint of peat on the very back, and you almost have to drink, like, if you sit around and drink a full pour of it in about 20 or 30 minutes, it starts to build.
Okay.
It starts to build on you, but it's real subtle. And I absolutely love that product, and we're going to send that one to San Francisco as well. Haven't sent that yet.
Okay, that'll be interesting. That's going to be one I'll be locked into. I'll as soon as I can find it. I want to try it. I mean, it's piqued my interest from the standpoint of at least now hearing a lot of people say that you can't just don't get so fixated on the peated side of it. Like I think the balance of the two work really well, especially with it being on a rye. So that's kind of a cool little twist. So I'll have to look for that guy. So
we don't have $1 million marketing department, so we're making these decisions on the fly. But like I said, seeing people in the field, definitely steer away from the peat. But once I conned them into tasting it, they absolutely loved it. And so we're going to change the name to Smoked. And then I can mention that also what we've done, we're going to do a cigar rye. So the same process, except we smoked it with some Kentucky tobacco leaves. It's
interesting.
We're getting some samples back from that and seeing how it's progressing. But I think the cigar rye is going to be huge.
Wow. I mean, I guess I can say, I mean, I've never even heard of anybody doing anything like that. So that's a cool thing. I don't know if it's been done or not, but it sounds, I guess, let's see. Is badass a pretty good word?
Yeah, we're doing all kinds of fun stuff, badass stuff down there.
That's awesome. That's amazing. Awesome. My guess is that'll probably be a huge hit for you. I think a lot of people. I mean, I'm a cigar guy as well, so I mean, I think anytime you can kind of combine the two and get a little bit of that influence, and especially some nice like fresh tobacco leaf or something along those lines, or a well fermented tobacco leaf, that's a really nice flavor profile to have on something. So all right, let me sorry go ahead.
Yeah, I said we keep our fingers crossed on that one.
Oh, I think you might have a hit on your hands with that one. So all right, so we're almost an hour in. Let me ask you this: as far as you've kind of answered a little bit of it, but what are your hopes, and kind of where do you see the brand, I guess, kind of evolving to, whether it's near future, long range, what are kind of some of your hopes for the brand?
Well, we hope to keep doing what we're doing. We hope to sell some whiskey out there. Love to, we just want to grow the brand, and you never know, maybe we'll end up with our own distillery one day. We are actually, I would tell everybody, we're working on a tasting room downtown Louisville. We bought a little doubler, so kind of a little experimental still we'll get to fool with, but we'll have a retail shop, tasting room, and an education. You'll be able to take an educational tour of actually how we do things, and we'll really break it down in those educational tours. And
is that all going to be down kind of like in that Whiskey Row area?
It is. As a matter of fact, it's in between Michter's and Old Forster's up the road a little bit, but we're maybe 1 or 2 blocks from Michter's.
All right. Well within walking distance, that's for sure. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty awesome. Well, thanks. I really appreciate your time tonight. I'm glad or hope that if there was anybody who was curious about the brand, I mean, I think what you've described, I mean, from what I've had so far, I mean, for me personally, I think it's a great bourbon. I love the profile of it. The more I sit down with it, the longer I take, I think the more kind of flavors you start to pull from it. So that for me is a fun thing where it's more than just, one dimensional. You kind of pick up some different things as you sip on it, kind of like I was throughout the night. And I think you guys are really doing some pretty incredible things all around. So I look forward to kind of following and seeing where the brand kind of evolves to. So outside of this stuff, so where can people kind of find you? I've got the website there, so if anybody is curious, you guys can go to buzzardroostwhiskey.com. But outside of that, what else is going on? Anything that anybody can kind of lock into with you guys here, coming up pretty soon?
Yeah, we're just trying to get in a bunch of different states. We're in Kentucky, Massachusetts right now. We sent product to Ohio. We've got product on the way to, it's actually in New Mexico. We'll be going out there after the kind of COVID slows down, which we're going to Arkansas next. We'll be at Arkansas in March, I think. Let's see. I'm be in Nashville tomorrow, meeting with the distributor. We're going to be New Orleans. We're looking at Louisiana distributing. Like I said, we're constantly adding states. And like I said, hopefully by the end of the year, we'll be in 10 to 15 states. We'll just see how it goes.
And that's pretty impressive. I mean, for a newer brand to be in that amount of states, that's pretty darn impressive right out of the gate. So
we're getting a lot of great feedback from these people, and a lot of distributors want to pick us up. So that's really helped out. It's just how the paperwork goes, and I think we've got enough product laid down for to be in at least 10 states. Awesome.
Well, hey, thank you so much for taking a little bit of your time tonight and kind of just, educating us, letting us know a little bit more about the brand. Sorry you had to stare at rainbow stuff for a little while. I just switch over to the old laptop computer. So I'll needless to say,
you're there.
I'll tell you, it's just like I was saying to you right before, it just never fails. Like somehow me and technology, there's always something that screws the whole damn thing up. But
I can't believe it's not my computer that screwed up.
No, it's mine, and it's something clearly on my other camera, which I've never had happen. But anyway, aside from that, thanks for taking the time and kind of educating us and letting people know. I feel that a lot of people have kind of come away, or hope that people come away a little more educated, understanding more about the brand. And I'll say this to you guys that are watching now. I can speak for the Barrel Strength. It's a great bourbon. Go find it. Go hunt down some of the peated or the smoked rye. Go try some of these things. I mean, support some of these guys. It's important to support them and do all of that. So I highly encourage you guys to do that. So with that being said, Jason, thank you so much. Hopefully we can catch up a little bit more down the road and kind of see where things are at that point. And if you're ever kind of roaming around Bourbon's Bistro, I'll pop in and say hi to you. That's for sure. So
thanks for having me. I really, really appreciate you letting us come on and tell our story.
Definitely. So guys, thank you so much. Appreciate you sticking with me here tonight for a little while. Hopefully you really enjoyed it. Again, go out, pick up some of the Buzzard's Roost. I think you'll really enjoy it. So until next week, guys, we'll see you then. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.